Hi, welcome to my review of the 1997 sci-fi horror film Event Horizon. So this is a Paul W.S. Anderson film and it's telling the story of this group of astronauts who have been sent out on a mission to investigate a spaceship that has suddenly made this reappearance after going missing years previously. So this is a really interesting film to talk about because this is one that back when it was released it was completely panned by critics. You know, it was a financial disaster. They made no money at all. They lost millions on this film. And on home DVD and video over the years, it's garnered somewhat of like a cult following, really, or people have really warmed to this film over the years, to where now, if you look at a lot of the modern reviews on this, they're actually giving the film a lot of praise and really being very positive about it. So it's quite interesting to see over the years how people's perceptions have really changed on movies, and maybe just at the time they didn't sit right with people or didn't quite work. You know, a similar thing happened with John Carpenter's The Thing, where originally critics, a lot of renowned critics, weren't interested, didn't like this film, and then years later people now class that as an absolute horror classic. So it is very interesting to see over time how perceptions of movies really change. As well, this film had a really disastrous test screening where people really hated the graphic violence and ended up having to, or the producers made Paul Anderson cut out about 30 to 40 minutes of this film. So effectively this movie really is a studio cut of the film, and the director's one, where there was way more of the violence, way more character arcs developed, is one that people have never seen. And recently it's quite interesting to see so many posts and reviews of people talking about how they would love to see that restored footage and see a full director's cut of this movie, which I'm absolutely sure would be a far better movie than what we got in the end here. I can't understand as well why they would cut so much of the graphic violence and disturbing imagery from this film, especially where 10 years before you had films like Hellraiser, which I think is quite comparable to this one in a lot of ways, but that film really went there and showed you a lot of disturbing stuff, and it worked extremely well for the film. Not that I don't particularly think Hellraiser is that good of a movie, but the disturbing imagery they show you, the graphicness of the violence, it worked very, very well. And for a movie 10 years later to be cut down to within an inch of its life, as this one obviously has been, it ends up feeling quite tame in comparison, when it's definitely clear that the director intended for it to be a much more extreme experience similar to those Hellraiser films. And this ultimately hurts the movie because it's one of those build-ups where the disturbing ending, the reveals that happen, lay on you being truly disturbed by what you're being shown. It's a film where less is not more. You need to go there, you need to show the insanity to really get the full effect of this film. And I think with this film there's a lot of good things about it. The build up to these points where there's certain reveals are good, but because it's so watered down, that final half, it just doesn't hit you with the impact that you feel like it should. It feels like the story and the build up warrants more than we're actually given. This movie has a really great setup. You know, it's a very unique idea. This ship that apparently has been through a black hole and been beyond the depths of the universe and has now come back into the solar system and potentially brought something horrific back with it. You know, it's got a great team dynamic where they're all sitting around together, and you have Sam Neill's character telling them all the stories of Event Horizon, what it was built for, and how it suddenly reappeared back here, and it's their mission to go and investigate it. All creates a very exciting lead up in this movie to when you actually finally see it, and it's a monstrous looking ship as well, and everything up till here is a really nice, unique setup for a horror film in space. I love the dynamic between these group of astronauts as well. You know, you've got a lot of familiar actors here like Laurence Fishburne, Jason Isaacs, Sam Neill, and they just have a nice camaraderie and chemistry between them, to where you do really believe that these people care about each other and have each other's backs, but they also have a lot of fun and banter with each other, and they're just a great group of people that you enjoy going along on their journey with them. So definitely the most memorable scene from the film, and I'm sure the most memorable for anyone who's seen this, is where the crew on Event Horizon have finally found the archived footage of the previous crew that were there running the ship. And you know, they get it back and it's all grainy, they can't really make out what's happening, and they can't make out the recording of it, they can't hear it, and it's going to be put through these filters, obviously for later in the film for us to see this. And when they finally clear it up and you see the video and images of what happened to that previous crew, I think I first saw this when I was about 15, 16, and those images have been burned into my brain ever since. They are extremely graphic, they are extremely disturbing, and it is a good payoff for this build-up of all this evil that's meant to be on this ship, and seeing that it does deliver in the gore and the nastiness of this film. Unfortunately though, after that climax of the film, I feel like it does just lose a little bit of steam after that. It doesn't ever quite get to the levels of disturbing and scary that I believe it should have. It has this really insane scene that it's just shown us, and you feel like, oh god, like what's going to happen next? What are they going to lead this up to? And it just doesn't get there. It doesn't get any more crazy than that. It's all very watered down. It's not that crazy, and I just started to check out a little bit of the film after this. There's this one really silly scene as well that took me out of the movie, where Cooper's basically been shot out of the ship and he has to use his thrusters to get back in. And this character's kind of been the comedy, like the comic relief throughout the film anyway. And it works in the earlier part when he's just bantering with the rest of the crew and making a lot of the quips and the jokes, it works. But now it's at a very serious point of the film, and I don't know if it's just the effects or the way he's acting in it, it just feels so slapstick and just felt out of place at this point in the film. And then those final scenes with the confrontation you have between the possessed Dr. Weir, Sam Neill's character, and Laurence Fishburne's character, I just started to mentally check out at this point, where you just got the two of them basically having a fist fight. I just feel like it's such an underwhelming ending. It's almost like any idea you could have thought up for the ending of that film would probably be better than what we actually ended up getting. Overall though, I would say this is still one of Paul W.S. Anderson's more interesting films. I've got to say, he's not a great director. His films are okay, but they are just a bit forgettable. You know, he's done a lot of those Resident Evil films. He did Alien vs Predator, the kind of movie I would shove on an evening, enjoy over a few beers, and then basically forget all about it by the next morning. There's nothing really to them any more than just purely 2 hours of entertainment. Whereas I do feel with Event Horizon there's a little bit more to unpack here, a little bit more to discuss, and just a bit more of an interesting plot to digest and talk about. So I give this a 3 out of 5 rating. It's on Netflix at the moment, which is how I managed to check it out again. I'd forgotten about this film, hadn't thought about it for a long time, saw it come up on Netflix, and I just got really tempted to give it a rewatch. So if you have a free evening, go on and give this one a watch. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed my review of Event Horizon. I've been going back and revisiting some old horror films recently and plan to do a few more reviews like this one. I recently did 28 Days Later, so I'll leave a card for you here if you want to check that out. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.